Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ulrich Schrauth. I'm the artistic director of RAM Festival Virtual Reality and Arts in Hamburg. Today, I want to give you a short introduction into how immersive technologies are used in all kinds of performative art forms like theater, dance, music, etc. I call this little session Behind the Curtain Theater and Performance in XR. And I want to literally give you a sneak peek behind the curtain and tell you what current trends and developments I see in performative settings in virtual reality, mixed reality, and what interesting trends there are at the moment. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. First, we're going to have a short introduction, a little bit about my background and why I'm actually telling you something about performance and XR. Then we have a little introduction again about terminology in XR, just so we're all on the same page. Then I'm going to talk a bit about different genres in performative settings in immersive technologies, but also different genres that are used in them. Then we're going to have a short history of immersive theater. Then I'm going to tell you a bit about current examples in VR and performance. Then we're going to talk about potentials of immersive theater or mixed reality performance, but also challenges and obstacles to work in them. And then a short summary, and let's get started. So first of all, a bit about my background, why I'm actually here telling you about VR and performance. My background actually is in theater and performance. I studied acting, singing, dancing at Folkwang University here in Germany. And I was on stage for a long time, playing Mamma Mia, Dirty Dancing, all of these very different musical theater shows. But I also studied cultural management, and I started then working with Thalia Theater in Hamburg, which is one of the most renowned theaters, straight acting theaters in Europe. I did that for quite a while. Then I wanted to work more internationally, so I worked with the Sydney Festival, for example. I did World Theatre Festival. But I've always been super interested in all kinds of immersive art forms. So I came across a few things in virtual reality that really blew my mind. And so I thought we need a festival for this new art form that's evolving, because it's not just technology, it's not just a medium, it's really a new art form that I think is evolving there. So I started a festival that's just about virtual reality and art. It's called RAM Festival, Virtual Reality and Arts in Hamburg. It's an annual festival, really showcasing VR or XR creators here in Hamburg, bringing over a lot of talent with residencies. We have a large discourse program, etc. So this is what I'm doing in that region. We also have a lot of performative settings, live performances, theater plays, concerts with virtual reality or mixed reality. And also I'm working for the BFI London Film Festival, where I'm the XR and immersive programmer for the new strand LFF Expanded. So the part of the festival that's solely focusing on virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. So this is what I'm doing, and today I want to take you on a short trip into all kinds of performative settings and why this new genre is so interesting. So for the background, just a bit of terminology so we're all on the same page. What's XR? What's this weird term? It stands for extended realities, and all kinds of extended realities like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, subsumized under the term XR or extended realities. Virtual reality means we are completely immersed in a computer-generated world or environment. We usually wear a VR headset, and we see this world that's just inside our VR headset, that's just the computer world. We don't see the real world around us. Augmented reality, on the other hand, means we do see the real world around us, but we have an augmented layer, an additional layer that shows us a computer-generated edition. It can be something like Pokemon Go, or it can be another artistic layer that comes on top of it. That the device can be a smart glass, for example, but it can also be just our phone or a tablet. And mixed reality means that the computer-generated images can interact with the real world around us that we actually see. In performative settings, mixed reality is often used to describe that we do interact with the real world, even though we see a computer-generated world or an immersive world that surrounds us. But we're going to come to that later. A few words or buzzwords that's always flying around, just to include them in the conversation. Immersion means we are immersed in this world that surrounds us, be it in VR, be it in AR. So we actually dive into the work of art that we're seeing, or the VR experience that we're seeing. Interaction is a very important part in extended realities. It means also on the contrary to a lot of conventional art forms, you can actually interact with the experience that you have. Not like in theater or as a concert where you're a passive spectator. Here you are an active part of the narrative or of the storytelling that's happening around you. Spatial audio means that you have audio that's 3D around you, so you actually can place where the audio comes from. Just like in the real world, it gives you a sense of scale, a sense of the room that you are actually immersed in, the three-dimensional room around you. And of course, immersive storytelling or virtual storytelling needs a very different narrative in comparison to conventional storytelling in 2D media, for example, in TV or also in theater. There's a different way to tell stories. We're going to come to that in a second. So also the next thing that we can distinguish is we either have 360 experiences or interactive experiences. A 360 experience means you can see 360 around you. Is often more of a filmic experience, a cinematic experience, and you can't necessarily interact with what you see around. And the interactive VR virtual reality experience is that you can actually interact with what's happening around you. You can move around in the three-dimensional space. And just a few words on equipment, accessibility, and headsets. Of course, you have what you see here on the left-hand side. You have the very high-end VR equipment, like a PC VR, for example, with a tethered headset like HTC Vive, Oculus Rift. You also have standalone devices like Oculus Quest, HTC Vive Cosmos, that work without a tethered computer or PC to this. You have mobile VR headsets like Oculus Go, Samsung Gear VR, etc. You have something very interesting that's getting more and more important also in performative settings with immersive technologies, which is web VR or web XR, which actually works through an URL or a web-based browser, which gives you an immersive experience. And also smartphones, tablet, your actually desktop browser or social media can give you an access which is mostly less immersive than with a complete equipment. Just a very rough overview, and I'm sorry if I simplify things a little here, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of terminology. So, what is immersive theater or mixed reality performance? In my opinion, there's not yet really a fixed terminology that's actually really used widely in all over the place. It's not like with conventional art forms that there's sort of this canon or this theoretical background around it. I just want to share with you how I would define the different genres in immersive theater, immersive performance. And I think this is how it's widely used at the moment, but I think there are quite a few different aspects to it. You're going to see it in a second. First of all, you have a virtual reality performance. This means you have a live moment to this performance. You have either a performer with you, you see this in the virtual reality. So normally you will have a virtual reality device, a headset on. It can be a singular experience. It can be an experience where you're in the room with other spectators at the same time. There might be a performer with you in the room at the same time, interacting with you only on the virtual level. Sometimes there's a haptical or a tactile element to it, so they might actually touch you, or you have an installative setting around you where you interact with the sets and props that surround you. For me, that's a virtual reality performance, always with a live character and interacting inside the performance. You have an augmented reality performance. Here you see an example from a wonderful company called Aoi. It's a piece that I actually showcased in my festival here in Hamburg 2019. And augmented reality performance means you can interact with a digital layer inside the performance through an augmented reality device. It can be a smartphone, it can be a tablet, it can also be an AR glass, for example, a HoloLens, one of these augmented reality devices. But you also have a live performative setting with it, so you can actually interact either with the computer-generated surrounding or environment, or something that's in real time triggered. Then we have a mixed reality performance. We have a virtual version of the performance. So we either have a VR device, but it mixes with the real world surround us. This is a very interesting example. It's called Antigon. It premiered at Sundance 2019. It is a live performance where people are in the room, the visitors inside the actual performance room. The performers are inside a headset, inside a real-time rendered virtual environment where this narrative, this story takes place, and they play and act live inside this performance, but the visitors can see what's going on inside the virtual world on a screen. So there is this element of real environment mixed with the computer generated or the virtual environment. There are very many forms of mixed reality performances. I think this is a very good example and a very beautiful one as well. Just a very short excursion. There are two different formats with especially mixed reality performance, but also virtual reality performances. You can either have it completely online. This is something, especially in our current situation with the corona pandemic, something that's become more common. So you can watch the performance completely online. You can be at home in your own environment, and a performer might be live with you. So you actually have this performative element in a narrative or in a very open associative setting. But you don't have to go somewhere else to experience it. And the other example is a location-based entertainment or location-based experience where you actually have to go into an installation, into a theater, or somewhere else where you can actually see this performance live and experience it live, mostly with the performers live with you. And as I just said, there's also the difference. It can be a live setting, so it's actually happening at the same time when you experience, or it can be pre-recorded. It still has this element because a lot of these work with AI, artificial intelligence, so you actually do shape the narrative of what's going on. So it is a live moment to it. So you actually interact with the narrative, with the characters inside the story. So it is a performance per se, but it might not be with live actors. We're going to come to that in a second as well. And I think these two formats are very, very interesting, especially in light of the current situation and obstacles and also potentials of performance with immersive technologies. Coming back to other forms of sort of immersive performative settings, one part that's very interesting is immersive rooms or immersive haptic installations. There is a trend to very strong installative settings with performative elements in immersive technologies. So a lot of times you have a very strong set decoration or an installation that's working with objects, with haptics, with tactile moments. So you have this live moment of experiencing what's going on and this additional layer of an immersive technology. It can be augmented reality, it can be virtual reality, but it's a very different form of, in comparison to a complete virtual reality performance, for example. And also another sort of subgenre are immersive sound installations. I would classify these as an installation that works mostly with 3D sound, and you can actually interact with them. So it has a live moment. It's not per se a performative setting, but you still have, and often it is combined with a narrative that you experience. So it does have some background in theatrical storytelling. This is why I also combine this into this subsummation of different performative settings. And I see that this is a trend that's also more and more combined with immersive technologies. So I think this is a very interesting one to watch. So what are different artistic genres that feed into immersive performance? So one part that's obviously very interesting is the whole world about theater, opera, live performance, etc. Especially in light of the current pandemic, theaters are forced to look into immersive storytelling, into other ways to engage with their audiences. And I think it's a very interesting time, and a lot is happening there with immersive technologies, and they really rethink how they tell their stories, how they reach their audiences. So this whole world around theater is one of the most thriving parts in artistic genres in immersive performance. The second one is performance art, a genre that started getting very strong in the 70s. One of their leading figures, Marina Abramovic, for example, already did two pieces in immersive technology, one with virtual reality, one with augmented reality. So I think this is also one genre that's very important in the whole mix of artistic genres. Then we have the whole area of dance, contemporary dance, classical dance, ballet. They all experiment with new immersive technologies, with new ways of telling their visual language in immersive performances. And there's a lot happening there. I'm going to tell about a few examples in a second as well. Then we have live installations. We talked about it earlier. So it's installative settings, set designs, where a performer or multiple performers are interacting with the visitor and with immersive technology, be it virtual reality, be it augmented reality, be it mixed reality. Also, another part that's very strong is, of course, music, concerts, sound. All of these are looking into immersive technologies, into 3D sound. How do they can give different access, new access to concerts, to live performances, and every access into music through immersive storytelling is very, very interesting and very actual and current. And the last genre that I want to name is live painting and sculpture. This is also something that's gradually evolving at the moment, where people coming more from the visual arts, from sculpture, painting, transform their artworks into more three-dimensional pieces and combine this with a live setting of a live performance, be it location-based, be it more of an online performance, but it's also an artistic genre that's very strong and has a very strong influence on all kinds of immersive performances. Now, a very short history of immersive theater and mixed reality performance, and how these forms actually evolved out of ways or new ways to tell stories out of the sort of classical theater setting. So what's immersive theater? Wikipedia says immersive theater differentiates itself from traditional theater by removing the stage, we talked about it before, and immersing audiences with the performance itself. We talked about immersion as well, and often this is accomplished by using a specific location. It's called site-specific performance, allowing audiences to converse with the actors and interact with their surroundings, thereby breaking the fourth wall. So what are the main elements of immersive theater? Firstly, a disintegration of the barrier between stage and audience. So we don't have the strict barrier between the stage on the one side and the audience on the other side. So the audience is an active part of the performance. Secondly, the integration of the audience members into the narrative of the work. They play an active role. So we really interact with the performers. We shape the narrative that's going on. And thirdly, the removal of social structures between the participants and actors. So in regular theater, you always have a social structure between the different audience members. Here, because everyone is sort of starting to get equal, because they don't bring their history into that new world that surrounds them in interactive theater. It's a very interesting social structure, and a lot of barriers are lifted, which a lot of theater makers use in this new immersive art form. What's important is immersive theater is not the same as interactive theater. So immersive theater can be can immerse the viewer into this performance, but he doesn't have to play an active role. But interactive theater means you actually have to shape the narrative. You have to interact with the performance in order to drive the narrative further. As I said before, there's a wide range of definitions, but the key factors for this are the audience influence, also participation, we just talked about it. So you actually have to engage with the narrative to bring it further and to make the story evolve. Also, the social constructs and roles are different than in a normal theatrical setting, and the level of involvement is very different in historical or conventional theater making. So a few examples of immersive theater and installation might be just interesting to have heard of. Of course, one of the game changers in immersive theater was Punch Drunk. Most of you might have heard about a play called Sleep No More. In all of their plays, give the viewer an active role in the setting. They immerse the viewer in complete set designs. They transform whole warehouses and settings into a backdrop for the immersive theater performance, and make the visitor an active role. Rimini Protocol is another very interesting company that's worked in sort of immersive installations for a long time. They build complete structures, complete installations that tell another story to the participants. Each participant can find their own way, their own story, often with use of immersive technology. Here you can see, for example, the use of AR or like a tablet that's giving you clues and hints while you go through this immersive installations. And also Signa is a company that's working very closely with immersive installations. Often the theater, the visitor doesn't have an as active role as, for example, in Punch Drunk or Rimini Protocol, but they're immersive in the best sense of the world, and they're very, very vivid installations that they come up with. Just a few names to maybe just have heard of that might be interesting in the conversation. Let's now talk about current examples. What are theater makers, what are choreographers working in or with immersive technology, and what are the stories they're telling, and what are interesting examples of it? The first one that I want to talk about is Gilles Jobin, a choreographer from Switzerland. He did this very, very beautiful dance piece. It's called VRI. It's been shown everywhere over the world with a big impact on how theater makers experience immersive technologies and how they understand the possibilities of it. Let's have a look into a short trailer, and then we're going to talk about it more.
Wow!
Like here, like 40 meters high, and you go.
C'est un peu comme faire un film pour des gens qui n'ont jamais vu d'image en mouvement.
Ça c'est le casque, ça c'est le PC en fait. Ces marqueurs en fait reprennent les informations des caméras infrarouges. Et c'est ces marqueurs qui vous permettent d'être situé dans l'espace.
Oui, ça serait bien.
Et puis d'ailleurs, sa mère maintenant, c'est elle est en train de flotter. Ce qui nous intéresse particulièrement quand on travaille avec des artistes, c'est pouvoir découvrir, on va dire, des terrains qui sont inconnus.
Quand je vois effectivement une personne virtuelle devant moi qui me tend la main et à qui je vais serrer la main, le moment où je lui tends la main, donc déjà je vois ma main virtuelle s'approcher de la main de l'autre utilisateur, et quand en plus je ressens effectivement le contact physique de la main, le cerveau sait plus où il est, c'est plus ce qui est réel de ce qui est virtuel, et c'est ce qui crée justement ce sentiment d'immersion vraiment très important en tout.
You have a nice dress. You have yeah. Salut.
Ah,
Salut.
c'est Gilles.
Alors,
Par contre,
Ce que je trouve qui est génial dans la technique de capture de mouvement, indépendamment de comment on montre, mais de capter le mouvement, c'est presque parfait. C'est-à-dire que l'enveloppe n'est pas parfaite, mais le mouvement, il l'est, parce que c'est des points qui sont capturés dans l'espace extrêmement précisément. Donc, toute la dynamique du mouvement est enregistrée dans ces points. La vitesse, l'accélération, tout.
c'était incroyable. Il me faut un petit moment.
Le virtuel est réel.
On pourrait passer, je pense, une journée entière enfermée dans ce monde.
On est vraiment comme un enfant qui découvre la première fois des merveilles. On est comme ça, voilà, c'est tellement, oui, inédit.
Yes, as you can see, it's a live performance where the visitors are interacting with the dancers live. They also play a lot with scale, which I find super interesting, and this infinite worlds in virtual reality. Interestingly, as you remember, we talked about this sort of location-based moment and this live moment. Jill has worked or reiterated the immersive performance into a more online setting. So he actually has a new version of it where you can interact from your own home and interact with dancers that are all over the world, but you see a live performance that's streamed live onto your headset and you can experience it in virtual reality. So that's a new iteration and very interesting development that we're seeing there. The next piece I want to talk about is called 8 by Michael van der Aar. Michael van der Aar is a composer and theater maker, and he did this beautiful installation. It's a music theater installation. He composed an opera called 8, and they have this beautiful set design, set decoration that one visitor at the time can see and get immersed with this performance. It was a co-production together with very interesting festivals like the Aix-en-Provence Festival, Herrenhausen, etc. So let's have a look into the trailer, and then I'm going to talk a little more about
it. It's really cool seeing this exciting new technology kind of bring this piece of art to life.
8 is a highly individual 15-minute experience through this imaginary space.
It's an entirely new art form, really, that we're all being a part of creating. Turn backward from the silence, the hollow, the untrue. We all in all particular part in time.
Yeah, what's very interesting here is it is a performative setting, but you don't interact with a live performer, but you can still interact with this set decoration, and it alters the story of what you actually experience in that moment. So beautiful piece of music theater with immersive technology. The next example I want to talk about is something very different. It's by Tender Claws. It's called The Omnipresence Tempest. So it's The Tempest by Shakespeare, but a very, very new format. And especially in these times we're in with the corona pandemic, this is very interesting because it is an online live theater performance. So you don't have to be in the same room to experience this piece. So you have live actors that are interacting with you. You actually buy a ticket for a certain time, then you go into the virtual reality headset and you experience this virtual performance live.
Let's set the stage. Put on your headset. Imagine a ship at sea, the illusion of a storm, a tempest, a production sunk, a theater closed, but I, the actor, am live, ready to perform my role. Good Prospero will bring the play to life with the help of my magic and you, my spirits. We are ready now to perform together. Approach my Ariel. Come.
Yeah, so as you can see here, it's a very different, also visual language. It is highly interactive, so you really have to engage with the storyline in order to drive the narrative and to engage with the actors. Very, very interesting approach, very different and highly actual in these times. The next one I want to talk about is by the Finnish National Opera. It is a new format they called Opera Beyond. They want to envision the new opera of the 21st century with immersive technologies. This piece is called Lila. Let's have a look into this, and then I'm going to talk about it a little more in a second.
Hi, Lila gives her voice to you. You are now ready to step in.
We create a universe within which things can happen uniquely to you, depending on what you say, depending on how you move within the space, depending on how you interact with other visitors.
if you should actually like rebuild opera, you can't rip it down more than we've done it.
Yes, you just heard they try to rebuild opera, and it is really more of an immersive installation, but still it's a performance because you can interact with the visuals that you see. It has a strong focus, of course, on the sound aspect, and I think this is a very interesting program to watch. So they also keep going in this, and they are experiencing many more formats and trying out new things. Opera Beyond, definitely one to watch. The last example I want to show you very quickly is a dance performance with immersive technology. It's still in development. It's called Future Rides by the choreographer Alexander Whitley. And it's a new rendition of Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring. And it uses virtual technology, so VR, but also artificial intelligence and generative AI in order to shape a new narrative, shape a new structure, and engage the audience, the visitor, inside this very, very beautiful dance piece. Let's have a look. Yeah, as you can see, visually very compelling, and they're really trying also very new formats about live interaction, about location-based, but also online experiences. So this one's one to watch as well, and I'm sure there's going to come something very beautiful out of it. These were a few examples of immersive performances. As you can see, they're very different settings, very different directions theater and art makers are looking at, and in which they want to push the boundaries. And I think it also makes clear why I said before, it's very difficult to define these different genres and categorize them, because each of these creators is rebuilding their own world, and they're actually envisioning how theater can look in our times with immersive technology. How do we push into new directions? How do we visually change the language? How do we change the narrative? How do we integrate the audience into the performance? And I think really this is why I'm so super interested in the whole format. And I think there's a lot to come. So what are potentials and advantages to work with immersive technology in performance? Firstly, we can break down the fourth wall. So we can break down the barrier between the stage on the one side and the audience on the other side. The audience, every participant is an active part of the experience. They drive the narrative. They can interact with the performers in a virtual environment, into a virtual setting. And it makes a very different storytelling possible and a much higher engagement. Secondly, we have endless visual possibilities, especially in virtual reality. These computer-generated surroundings and also the avatars that we're going to work with, they give a lot of possibilities that a normal, like a physical set design in theater, in opera, in dance can't actually reproduce. Thirdly, the level of immersion. We're really part of the story, of the artistic experience. We're immersed in the narrative, in the storyline. We interact with the other performers, and this gives a very different attachment and a very different sense of immersion to the virtual performance. And lastly, all of these are in one way or another collective and participative experiences. So we experience this together, either online or location-based, and we do participate in the story, something that we always want to achieve in immersive theater, but it's not always possible. But in immersive technology, there is always a level of participation because we're always an active part of the narrative. Of course, there are always also challenges and obstacles to work with immersive technologies. One of them definitely are technical challenges, especially in location-based entertainment. So if we have, for example, a festival or an arts institution to showcase a virtual performance, there's always going something wrong with the setup. Something's not working, a cable is missing. So it is still emerging technology, and there are always things to fix. But I think this is also the beauty of it, and it can be some fun as well. Financial challenges, it is very expensive still to work with these technologies like VR, AR, especially in performances. But there's a silver lining. The technology gets cheaper. There are more grants that actually, like government grants and possibilities to raise money for these kind of experiences. But it's still something festival makers, theater makers have to think about strongly before they put up an immersive performance. Thirdly, accessibility, of course, is always a challenge. Like with a normal theater or an opera house, you have 1,000 seats, 2,000 seats that you can fill every evening, sometimes a couple of times a day. And with most immersive performances, you have a very small amount of visitors. I mean, sometimes it's 5 visitors, sometimes it's only 1 visitor at the same time. So accessibility is really something cultural institutions, theaters, etc., are still struggling with when they want to program these kind of immersive performances. And lastly, the team size, especially if there's a lot of people traveling to set up an immersive performance in a location-based setting like a festival or an arts institution, there's still, for example, let's say we have 10 people traveling for a performance where only 1 visitor at the same time can see it. It really puts a lot of financial pressure on the institutions that want to program these. So theater makers and producers have to be very careful and really challenge how many people really have to travel or have to be part of the setup and the actual performance. Yes, this was a little bit about VR, AR, mixed reality in performative settings with very different genres, very different kind of artists working in this. I could only touch very lightly on all of these, I think, very, very interesting topics, but I hope it was interesting for you as well, and it makes you want to experience some of these artworks, look these up on the internet, tap into this, have a look at it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or just write me an email. I'm more than happy to answer your questions and to get into a conversation and try to really push this new art form forward and to see where this is actually heading, in which direction, and what the next creators, what the next artists are that are going to work in this performative art forms in immersive technologies. Thank you very much and have a good day.